everyone. I'm Caroline Zakarian. I work for the Office of Signals and Community Services here at the Los Angeles Public Library. Welcome to Financial Literacy Month. Today's presentation is called Credit Reports and Scores and is part of a month of programming in support of financial literacy. Today's program is brought to you by the Los Angeles Alliance for Economic Inclusion and the Los Angeles Public Library. Today, Brianna Rodriguez, Victor Jimenez, and Cheryl Ryman from AEI will discuss credit reports and scores, building productive credit histories, and repairing and improving credit. We will have a short Q&A after the presentation, so please send us your questions throughout the program. Thank you, and take it away, Rihanna.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm Brianna Rodriguez, and on behalf of the Los Angeles Alliance for Economic Inclusion and LA Saves, we want to thank the Los Angeles Public Library for hosting this Credit Builder workshop. We appreciate the opportunity to share this important information. My co-presenters, as Caroline stated, are Cheryl Ryman and Victor Jimenez. Next slide, please. I just want to ensure that I provide this disclaimer. This presentation represents the views of the speaker and not necessarily those of the agencies they represent. This presentation cannot be reproduced or distributed by a third party or on a third party website without prior authorization. Next slide, please. Today we'll be discussing credit reports and scores. And through this presentation, we hope that you gather a lot of useful information. Next slide. Again, we will discuss credit reports and how the information in your credit report may affect many areas of your life. If we were in person, I would definitely ask how many of you have pulled your credit report in the last 12 months, or how many have you ever in your lifetime pulled a credit report? And unfortunately, we're not. But if you'd like to drop something into the chat, do let us know if you've seen a credit report. It'd be really great insight for us. Next slide, please. For Section 1, credit reports, I would like to ensure that you take away that credit history can affect your access to credit, loans, jobs, housing, insurance, and other important services. And understanding your rights to help you know how to protect your credit history is important. Next slide, please. So what is in a credit report? If you've seen a credit report before, if you've read a credit report, some of this may look familiar, or maybe you're not quite familiar with what a credit report looks like, even if you have pulled one. So in a credit report would be your name, your credit card payments, any type of bankruptcies, student loan payments, credit card limits, mortgages if you have one, car loans if you have them. That would all be reported on your credit report. However, your age is not listed on your credit report. Your date of birth is, but not your age. Your income is not included. Any cell phone plans that you may have are not included. However, I do want you to understand that if for some reason there is any negative payments on your cell phone plan, that may be reported on your credit report. Your debt to income ratio is not included. The savings account balance or any type of checking account information you may have is not on your credit report. And any of your debit card purchases are not on your credit report. Next slide, please. So what is listed in a credit report? This is going to be information such as any type of identifying information, such as your name and address. And again, as stated before, your date of birth. Your debts and closed credit accounts, which would be comprised of any type of current credit cards that you would have. So it would list the name of the creditor, the current and closed accounts, and when the account was opened or closed. And it would be any type of account balances and any type of payment history. Also, your public record information, which would include any type of bankruptcies or foreclosures or any type of serious delinquencies. And also credit inquiries. There are credit inquiries that are considered hard inquiries, which would provide full access to your credit report in response to a credit application, or a soft inquiry, which provides limited access to your credit report information for an organization that's looking to offer you new credit services. Next slide, please. There are 3 large nationwide credit reporting agencies, which would include Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These companies make credit reports that can be that are called credit reporting agencies, and they pull credit reports. These particular credit bureaus or credit reporting companies would have your credit history, and you would likely have 3 separate credit reports, one from each of these nationwide credit reporting agencies. You have the right to see these reports, and we will talk about that later in this presentation. In addition, the 3 nationwide credit reporting agencies there's also specialty consumer reporting agencies. The provided reports would help the other companies make decisions about providing consumer products and services, for example, for employment, rental housing, insurance, or any type of cell phone plans. And some companies may actually have reports for information about you as well, other information. Next credit slide, please. So you have the right to a free credit report. Currently, you have one free credit report every 12 months from each nationwide credit reporting agency, as stated, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. If you go to annualcreditreport.com, and again, I just want to make sure I point out annualcreditreport.com, make sure that you're going to this specific website. Official website to fill out the free credit reports. It gives you access to all 3 of the credit reporting agencies and all 3 credit bureaus, or credit reports, excuse me. If you go to another one, you may have to pay a fee. This is free. And the telephone number is listed below at 1-877-322-8228. Next slide, please. And also right now, we just want to ensure that we're informing you that you have the right to additional free credit reports. You have one free credit report every week from each nationwide reporting credit agency. And this is due to the CARES Act with COVID-19. So you would be able to receive a free credit report from Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. And the credit reporting agencies are making these reports free through December 2023. So ensure that you go directly to annualcreditreport.com to pull those free credit reports. And it's incredibly important that you are checking your credit to ensure that it's accurate, especially with any new type of payment arrangements or temporary forbearances that you may have asked for. And again, the recently passed CARES Act generally requires your creditors to report these accounts as current. And this will help you fix any type of errors or mistakes that you may spot on your credit. Notify the credit reporting agencies directly if you do notice any type of credit reporting error. And just for example, I did myself personally take advantage of this, and I did note that I did have a creditor that stated that I was looking for, I guess, a forbearance, and was reporting that my loan was forbearance versus current, and I never even contacted the credit bureau, or excuse me, that particular creditor. So I contacted the credit bureaus to ensure that I had that corrected. Go to the next slide, please. And ensure that you're watching out for imposters. Again, others that advertise free credit reports or scores or credit monitoring are not part of the legally mandated free annual credit report program. Often you'll see free services convert, and they convert you to one that you have to pay for after a trial period. So again, ensure that you're going to annualcreditreport.com. Next slide, please. In addition to the free credit reports that I was stating earlier for COVID-19, there are other instances in which you would receive a free credit report. And that would be if you receive public assistance, you're unemployed or looking for a job, you've been the victim of identity theft or financial fraud. The state law, provides for a free credit report. So in California, if they allow for free credit reports, and if you are denied credit, service, an apartment, or employment, you would receive a free credit report. And you could go again to annualcreditreport.com or to the credit bureau sites directly. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Credit reporting and your rights. Why is it important to know about your rights in credit reporting? It's so you can help save yourself some money. And it's important to understand your rights to ensure that you can dispute incorrect or outdated information. You're more likely to take action and improve your credit history and scores, which can potentially lead to more favorable credit, which would be like your rates, more favorable rates, and service agreement terms. It's really important to know if your rights have been violated, and making sure that you take steps to protect your credit history. And then in this, you're also able to improve any credit history you have currently and any credit scores you have. Next slide. And some of your rights are in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA. And FCRA is a federal law that provides you with the rights related to credit and other consumer reporting. Some of the highlights I would like to bring to your attention would include anyone who uses a credit report to deny your application, meaning any type of financial institution. If you've gone into Kohl's to apply for a credit card and they've denied you, Target, etc. If they deny you your credit application or offer you less favorable terms for your credit, insurance, or employment, they must tell you that they did so. So there would be some sort of notification provided to you that they did deny your application for credit. You also have the right to dispute any incomplete or inaccurate information that is on your credit report. And also, credit and other consumer reporting agencies must correct or delete inaccurate, incomplete, or unverifiable information within 30 days after they've received your dispute. So again, it's really important to understand that you do have rights and you have the ability to take control of your credit history, your current credit posture, as well as your credit score by exercising your rights under FCRA. So for section 1, again, I want you to take away that your credit history can affect your access to credit, loans, jobs, housing, insurance, and other important services. And understanding your rights helps you know how to protect your credit history. Now I'm going to hand it to Cheryl. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rihanna. So Rihanna talked a lot about credit reports, which can be a little bit intimidating. There's a lot of information in credit reports. And the website that she shared, annualcreditreport.com, provides access to your credit reports for free. But if you want access to your credit scores through that website, there is a small fee. Well, what is a credit score? Well, bear in mind that credit scores and credit reports are absolutely two different things, although they're siblings, they're closely related. The credit score is the result of your credit report, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. So we're going to talk about steps on how you can improve and manage your credit score, which includes, of course, paying your bills on time and as agreed. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the credit score is a number. It's based on information in your credit report, and the calculation that gathers all of that information and analyzes that is a factor to predict the likelihood of you to pay those bills and debts as agreed. And of course, people with the higher credit scores present the lowest risk to lenders. So who uses credit reports and credit scores? I think that, Rihanna certainly alluded to that fact. Financial institutions use them to determine whether you get a credit card or another type of loan. Landlords might use them to decide if they will rent you an apartment or a house, and how much of a security deposit they might insist on. Utilities companies use them to decide whether or not you will be required to pay a security deposit, and again, the amount of that deposit. Of course, cell phone companies use them to determine your eligibility for their plans. Insurance companies, which is often a surprise to people, that insurance companies use your credit report and your credit history and your credit scores to decide whether they will sell you the insurance and or how much you will pay for that insurance. And then, of course, most employers now review a credit report. It's kind of a character reference for potential employees, and access to that depends on state law. And then some state agencies or affiliated organizations may use them to determine eligibility for professional licenses, such as mortgage loan originators and other types of professional industry. Okay. So what goes into the credit score? Now, on this presentation, we're talking about FICO scores. And I think generally when general population, when we're talking about credit scores, the reference is really to FICO scores. It's kind of used interchangeably. What's your FICO score? What's your credit score? Well, it's important to remember that there's more than one type of credit score, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But really, when we're looking at that FICO score, the most important part of your FICO, your credit score, whether it's FICO or any other really, is payment history. There has to be a positive payment history, a positive payment record on your credit report to maximize your credit score. No credit is not good credit. And we're not suggesting that you get into debt, but using credit and paying it back responsibly is what maximizes your credit score. So 35% of your credit score is determined by your payment history. Do you have payments? Do you make them on time? Are you delinquent? Are you 30 days delinquent, 60 days, 90 days, or more? That positive payment history is going to have a significant impact. And then the amount owed. And this is a little bit misleading because it's not purely the amounts that you owe, it's your utilization ratio. It's how much access, what your limits are, how much access to credit do you have, as opposed to how much of that you actually use, your balances. So your available credit versus what you're actually using. And to maximize your credit score, you want to keep those balances 30% or less than of your limits. And then, of course, the length of history. Are you new to credit? Are you just now establishing credit, or have you had credit for a long time? Which is why when some people ask us about closing accounts, you got to kind of think about it. If it's an account that you've had, even if you don't use it very often or don't use it at all, but you've had it a long time, we don't recommend that you close it, that you do periodically use it to keep it active, because that demonstrates that length of history. And then the credit mix. 10% of your credit score is determined by the type of credit that you have. Do you have a home mortgage? Do you have an automobile loan? Do you have student loans? Do you have revolving credit, the credit cards? Are they universal credit cards, the MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Discover, or are they store cards? Is it Home Depot? Is it Pet Boys? Is it Target? Kohl's? What type of credit cards? So the type of credit is factored into that credit mix. And then again, when we're talking about new credit, which is 10% of your credit score, the inquiries do affect your credit score. And also, if you do a home mortgage or you do an automobile loan, you're at 100% of that credit limit, right? So if you purchase a vehicle for $25,000, until you pay down that balance, you're at 100%. So that's going to have some effect on your credit score also. Next slide, please. So what is a good credit score? Well, what a great question. So it's really important to remember different circumstances, different lenders, different businesses and service providers all use different criteria for what they consider to be a good credit score. So this is just an example. And I mentioned earlier about FICO scores. FICO scores typically range from 300 to 850. And FICO offered this chart simply to demonstrate, to help estimate what credit scores might mean. Of course, the higher your credit score, the more likely you are to qualify for credit for rental housing, insurance, and other circumstances, employment. Good, very good, or exceptional credit scores provide you access to most products and services. Someone with exceptional credit scores are likely offered the absolute best terms and conditions. They're the ones who when you see those Sunday morning card advertisements on TV, 0% down and 0% interest, those are on approved credit. Those are the ones with the exceptional credit scores. And individuals with fair or poor credit scores may not qualify for some products or services, and may, even if they do, they're going to pay a higher rate of interest, which means they're going to pay more for that very same item. So it's important to note that your credit scores are not a reflection of who you are, but a reflection of how you've handled your financial obligations in the past, and that your financial history is not, or your credit history is not your credit future. Okay. And also bear in mind, having a high credit score does not mean that you're financially successful or affluent. There are both sides to that pillar. There are low income people who have very good credit histories and credit scores, and there are wealthy people who have bad credit histories and low credit scores. Okay, next slide, please. So having no scores or credit reports is termed credit invisible. And as I mentioned, no credit is not good credit. To have good credit, you have to use credit. Without credit, you'll have a hard time getting a loan, an apartment, a cell phone, some jobs, and of course, of turning on utilities without having to pay a large deposit. So next slide. So the takeaway here is that you can take steps to improve and manage your credit scores. Absolutely, one of the most important factors to that is paying your bills on time and as agreed. Now, here's the real meat and potatoes when we talk about building, repairing, and maintaining a productive credit history. And as I said, your credit history does not have to be your credit future. Each month, as information gets fed to those credit bureaus that Rihanna mentioned, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, each month new information gets reported and old information falls off. So, what is a productive credit history? It means having a credit history that helps you do the things that you want to do without having to pay more for it. Building credit. Ways to do that, some things to consider. If you're new to credit, or even if you maybe have a not so good credit history, but you want to start building a positive, productive credit history, you can get a secured credit card. Usually it's cash secured. If you deposit $500, the credit card issuer will give you a $500 credit card limit, and they'll hold your cash, your deposit, as collateral in the event that you don't pay. But if you do pay, eventually they'll release that back to you and allow you to keep using the card. Same thing with a credit building loan, very similar. You make the cash deposit, they give you the loan. Meanwhile, you make those payments on time and as agreed, and that helps to establish that positive payment history. Another suggestion is to become an authorized user on someone else's report, on someone else's account. Bear in mind, not all authorized users are reported to the credit bureaus. Also, not all lines of credit are reported to the credit bureaus. So verify with the creditor, first off, that they do report to the credit bureau and that they report authorized users. Okay. You could also get a cosigner. So a cosigner is like joint liability. You both own the account, you both have equal access to and equal rights and equal obligations for that credit. Sometimes it's easier to get a credit card from a store, like I mentioned, and Rihanna mentioned, Target, Kohl's, Pep Boys, Home Depot, because you can only use those credit cards at those locations or for gas stations. So it might be a little easier to qualify for a low balance credit card rather than for a general purpose MasterCard, Visa, or other type of credit card. Then if you're looking to finance something, let's say a car, if you can make a larger down payment, then it's easier to negotiate a loan for the remainder of that balance. So you wouldn't need to borrow as much money. Okay, next slide, please. Then once you have access to credit, it's really important to maintain that positive payment history. Pay your bills on time as agreed. Doing this will have the greatest impact on your credit report and your credit score. As I said, it's the most important part of maintaining and building that credit score. And then continue to pay down your debt balances. I know that that's ideal and it's easier said than done, but it's really important to minimize your debt as best you can. Okay, keep the proportion of bills that you use low compared to your credit limits. Remember, we when we're looking at that pie chart, we're talking about your balances and that utilization ratio. So if your credit card has $1,000 limit, ideally you want to keep your balance below $300 to maximize your credit score. Okay. Don't apply for too much credit. Applying for a lot of credit at once is a little bit of a trigger to lenders. They may not view that favorably as you apply for credit. Sometimes the pattern is that someone will go out and apply for a lot of credit, max it all out, and then not make those payments. So be careful about applying for too much credit at one time. Also, each of those credit application inquiries will show on your credit report, even if you don't get approved, and affect your credit score. Check your credit reports. I don't think that we can say this enough or emphasize how important it is. At least every 12 months. And as Rihanna said, right now they're available every week. You can go in every Monday morning, every Friday night, and check your credit report. And regularly, absolutely, if you see something on there that you don't recognize, that you dispute it, that your credit report should be true and correct. Particularly, I think when the Federal Trade Commission first made this website available with the credit reports, the largest concern for them was identity theft. So identity theft is still a concern. It's a very large issue, and you may not even be aware of things on your credit report until you look at it. And of course, keep good financial records. Good record keeping will help you prove if you made those payments, when you made those payments, and correcting any errors that you might see on your credit report. And also keep good records in the event that you find that you are a victim of identity theft, that you can contact all of your creditors quickly and have them close those doors so that somebody can't access that information and or your good credit. So this is a directory of organizations that participate in the FDIC's Alliance for Economic Inclusion, but really are great references for all of us in helping to build our credit and maintain our credit if we need help. So certainly your financial institution, your neighborhood bank. I realize that we might sometimes feel a little intimidating, but we really do want to help. There are a number of nonprofit consumer credit reporting counseling services, primarily HUD certified. HUD certified financial counselors have to go through a process to get their certification. And so they really know their stuff. And oftentimes they're deeply involved in the local community. They have a number of contacts, and are really resourceful. Okay, so if you're looking maybe to do a secured credit card, they might know which financial institutions offer those. So looking for a nonprofit consumer credit counseling service. As I mentioned, the housing counseling agencies approved by HUD, not just for housing purposes, but they're great for resources simply for credit counseling also. But they do tend to focus more on getting you ready, getting you on that path towards home ownership. And then financial education, nonprofit organizations, there are a number of those that are available also. Certified financial planners. Now, generally, certified financial planners might charge a fee. Um, there are some that do act on pro bono cases, but there certainly are a number of resources that are available for you to get help to wrap your arms around uh, understanding your credit history, uh, what your rights are, how to dispute those errors, and how to improve your credit history going forward. Bear in mind, though, that they are not all good. On the next slide here is a warning. Beware, 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 beware. Um, I think, especially in the 2008, 2009, 2010 recession and housing crisis, we saw a number of bad actors out there who advertise, we can fix your credit, we can fix your credit, we can improve your credit scores. And a lot of those, not all of them, but a lot of them required a lot of money up front. um, and then they're not able to do anything for you that you can't do for yourself. So a lot of these credit repair scams would promise to erase bad credit or remove other negative information, but it was accurate. So they would file the dispute, which would suspend that activity from showing on your credit report, maybe temporarily. But once it was proven to be legitimate, it would go right back on. They would promise fast and easy credit repair. Well, like I said, each month as new information gets reported to the credit bureaus, old information falls off. Generally, your payment history activity, if you have late payments, those stay on for 7 years. If it's true, it's going to live there for 7 years. But bear in mind that the older bad information is, the less effect it has on your current credit score. So there is no fast and easy credit repair if, in fact, it is accurate. If it's not accurate, then you can dispute that yourself and have that corrected. Credit repair scams offer to create a new identity for you. I really hope I don't have to tell anybody that's not a good idea and it's not legal, right? And a lot of the credit repair scams, like I said, require you to pay up front. Now, part of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, I know it's a law, so there's a lot of language in there, but one of the things that are prohibited within that is that credit repair companies cannot require you to pay up front. You pay after they've provided those services. And credit repair scams also don't want you to know what your rights are. They may mislead you, they may often even just directly lie to you, and they certainly don't want you to know that you can do this yourself without having to pay them, right? You can order your credit reports and scores yourself. If you see errors on your reports, you can file a dispute. If you see, that there are other records on there that maybe, you really need to focus on, you can do that. You can do that yourself. Now, protecting your credit history, there is a lot of fraud. There is identity theft. There is a lot of identity theft. Um, there are there are a lot of cases of you may hear of security breaches where identifying information, electronically, security breached. There are ways that you can protect your identity and your credit history. So an initial fraud alert is a good option if you're concerned that you may become a victim of identity theft or fraud. An initial alert requires creditors and other businesses to verify your identity. So it's kind of a speed bump when somebody wants to access your credit report. There's a warning and they have to take certain actions. Maybe you have a code word. Maybe they have to actually see your identification to, in fact, prove that it's you who's applying for that credit for them to be able to access that. An alert is free, stays in place for 1 year, and after it expires, you can put it on again if you want to. Now, an active duty military alert, I think that's pretty clear, is similar to the initial fraud alert, except it's only available to active duty members of the military who are deployed. Again, this is free, stays in place for 12 months, and can be renewed for the length of someone's deployment. Then the extended fraud alert. Now, if you have already been a victim of identity theft, you can place an extended fraud alert. It's also free and it provides the same protection as the initial fraud alert, except it stays in place for 7 years. Although you do have to prove that you've been a victim of identity theft and provide a copy of the identity theft report. Now, a credit freeze or a credit lock prevents access. That just closes the doors, right? That means that's not the speed bump, right? With the initial fraud alert, it's a speed bump. The person who's accessing the credit report is on notice that they have to prove that you are the owner of. A credit freeze says, nope, you can't even get access to the credit report. This prevents new accounts from being opened, and in some states, new accounts for other services such as insurance and utilities. If you place a credit freeze or a credit lock, you have to have that opened. You have to lift the freeze if you want to apply for new credit or a job or something else that requires access to your credit reports. You have to plan ahead because it may take 24 to 48 hours to lift that freeze. And this freeze lasts for at least 1 year. And you must place a freeze at each of the 3 credit bureaus. Excuse me. So the key takeaway, next slide please, is your credit history does not have to be your credit future. As I mentioned, we didn't talk today about the contents of your credit report and the life cycle of each of those pieces of information, but as each month new information gets reported, old information falls off. So your credit history does not have to be your credit future. Excuse me. For more information about credit reports and scores, the Federal Trade Commission.gov, FTC, excuse me, FTC.gov, www.consumerfinance.gov, and of course, annual credit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Victor.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, Brianna and Cheryl, for this great presentation. And now I want to take the time to speak to everyone about LA Saves. Okay. Next slide, please. So, America Saves and LA Saves, just to go over what this campaign is about. So, America Saves is a nationwide campaign that has regional campaigns throughout the nation. So our working group decided to join America Saves campaign and launch our own local campaign, which is now designated as the LA Saves campaign. Okay, so it's a campaign managed by the Nonprofit Consumer Federation of America. Okay, which seeks to motivate, encourage, and support low to moderate income households
All right. Looks like we lost Victor. I'm sorry about that. As he was saying, excuse me, the Alliance for Economic Inclusion with the FDIC is partnered with, there's a national drive for America Saves. And in Los Angeles County, the Alliance for Economic Inclusion has partnered with America Saves for LA Saves. And it operates through a nonprofit, actually through, we work with the County of Los Angeles even. And it really is a method to motivate us to save. And it gives us helpful reminders and thoughts and clues. And it's not just shooting from the hip. There's a lot of research that has gone into this, and teaching us how we can. Oh, Victor, are you back, Victor? Because this is really his niche.
Yes, I am.
There we
Sorry.
go. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, so as I was stating, not sure if everyone kind of got the gist of that, but so why save? So save for emergencies, okay? Save for opportunities too, okay? Save for a down payment to buy a home, or for any other goals you may have in mind and wish to accomplish, okay? Next slide. Okay, so just went over this. Next slide. So let's go over some tips and tricks on how to save. Okay, so how can you do that? Well, one of the ideas might be save by reducing debt. Okay, and we'll go over some ideas for that. Next slide. So good credit management is really important, as we heard throughout this whole presentation. There's multiple ways of you being able to take care of your credit. Okay, making sure that along the way as you're building credit, making good credit, you also save money. So having good credit obviously will be a great benefit on save on interest. Don't allow yourself to, not take good care of your credit and pay late fees. Those late fees can catch up to you and can add up quickly. Okay, so you have to be really subconscious of making sure that you're taking care of your credit as well as trying to save money, not give so much money away. So, save with a healthy score. We all know that if you have good credit, then you're gonna have a good credit score, and it's gonna equal you having a good interest rate. Okay. Remember, having good credit is a great benefit. Okay, for you to reach financial security. Next slide. So, plan to reduce debt. Getting out of debt is the number 3 goal savers usually select when they pledge to save. We see that quite often. Everyone wants to really get out of debt, not be in debt, because it's really hard for you to try to save while you're in debt. So large consumer debts can keep you from saving and building wealth. Okay. So planning, discipline, and patience can reduce debt and start you on the path of accumulating wealth. Okay. So let's keep all of those things in mind, when we want to plan to reduce debt. So going more into taking the pledge, let's look at it. The next slide, which is take the pledge. So here's these are the steps on how to take the pledge. Okay. First, it's not much information that we ask of you when you take the pledge. Step number 1 is your name. Step number 2 is setting up a goal. Step number 3 is make a plan. Step number 4 is way we keep in touch. So why take the pledge? Taking the pledge is a pledge to yourself to start saving and creating a journey to encourage yourself, on saving. So take the first step towards creating a better financial future. Okay. Once you pledge, we keep in touch. So during the pledge, you establish personal goals, make a plan, and complete it. By completing a pledge, you will get periodic reminders, resources, and tips to keep you on track towards your saving goal. Might be 1 to 2 messages per month that you would get. Okay. Next slide. So here, I just want to show you. I just want to share with you how it's going to look once you take the pledge. You make a plan, and this is an example of how it's going to look once you know log in and take the pledge. Okay. Next slide. So one question to ask yourself: do you need to open a bank account? So my suggestion is yes. Opening a bank account can be one of the most important steps towards reaching your financial goal. Why? Because putting your money in an FDIC insured bank account can offer you financial safety, easy access to your funds, savings from check cashing fees, and overall just financial peace of mind. Okay. So how can you get that done? Well, learn how to open an account, at FDIC Insured Bank by visiting fdic.gov/getbank. Okay. Next slide. So now, in case you don't have a bank account, in the LA County website, you can locate a list of banks that offer low-cost accounts, which is titled Bank On. So please feel free to visit the website. You'll be able to see all the banks that are participants of Bank On, and you'll see a good description of low monthly maintenance fees, the minimal amount required to open an account. So if you don't have a bank account, I would suggest you visit the LA County website, to see the participating banks. Okay. Next slide. So here are some reminders of some websites for great resources for everyone to keep in mind that were shared throughout the presentation. Okay. Once again, let's not forget of making sure you obtain a free credit report, and taking the LA Saves pledge. Okay, www.lasaves.org. Okay, so keep that in mind. Next slide. So just to finalize, we want to make sure you take action. Okay. Make sure you ask yourself these questions and notate the answers to them. What will I do? How will I do it? Will I share my plans with anyone? If so, who? So just to finalize now, and on behalf of our team, we would like to thank you all for your time.
Hello, I am back. Thank you, Victor, Rihanna, and Cheryl, for a great presentation. I learned a lot, so I was taking notes. Let's get to the questions. Okay, so we have let me go 1 second. Okay, one question that came in is, currently I have more than one credit card. Should I close some and just keep one credit card? What should you do in this case?
At the length of all of the things that really make up your credit score. Closing a credit card or credit account has two factors on that. One, you want to consider, how long has that account been open? Is it one of your oldest account relationships? If so, you don't want to close that. And two is that utilization ratio. When we were talking about your credit limits and how much your credit balances are. Even though you may not use that credit card, if you close that credit card, you're decreasing your access to credit, those credit limits. So even if you have a balance on another card, your utilization ratio is going to be more now because you have less access to credit unless you pay off those other balances. So it's not always an easy answer. Generally, when we are working with clients and looking at their credit reports, we have to take everything into consideration. So if I had to give an answer, I would say no, don't close it, but do periodically use it to keep it active, not just open. So great question.
Okay, a follow-up to that. So, like, if it's your oldest credit card, I will get there's another recurring question, but like for instance, if it's like the oldest credit card you've owned, you probably shouldn't get rid of that, right?
No, keep it.
Because I've always heard like don't get rid of the oldest credit card you have. I have one since college, even though it's been stolen. I mean, I have it now, but I don't really use it because like that'll mess up the credit, right? That'll affect it because it's the
It does
oldest
affect your
one.
credit score. Although if you have access to a lot of credit and you don't use very much, then of course it probably doesn't make that big of a difference. But if
Okay.
you only have a few credit cards, then and that, like you said, that's the one that you've had forever, we would encourage you to keep that one.
Okay. Thank you.
And
So
again,
it's not just
periodically use it
yeah, use it.
to keep it active. Open and active are not the same thing. So when we were talking about your payment history, having an occasional payment made, so you have to use it, so you have a little bit of a balance. And that doesn't mean go on a shopping spree and max it out. But if if it's like a MasterCard or Visa and you're buying gas anyway, use that card. Put it in rotation once a year at least. Because some credit cards, if you don't use them for a period of time, the issuer closes the card out. And I found that with the department stores primarily. I went to go, with Macy's, you go shopping periodically, and I was going to get a wedding gift. And I said, it was like an extra percentage, discount if you use your credit card. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't have it with me. Let's look it up. And they're like, no, you don't have an account. I'm like, well, yes, I do. I'm like, no, you don't. And she says, well, have you used it? And I'm like, well, no. And she's like, oh, well, then we must have closed it.
That's actually happened to me at Macy's too, ironic. They do tend to
Yes.
close credit cards.
Yes.
So we have a question from Ken.
I see.
Can they negotiate for lower interest rates if you had it for a long time? Your credit
Actually,
card?
that's a great question, Ken. Yes. Yes, absolutely. You can negotiate. I mean, you can ask. They don't have to say yes, but the risk for the credit card issuer then, and really they want to keep the accounts open, but the risk with them not negotiating, don't go for like a 2% rate. Do some research and find out what market rates are, particularly if at the time that you were new to that credit card, maybe your credit history and your credit score is now better than it was then. Definitely ask for a better, lower rate of interest.
And then
Certainly.
he's asking a follow-up question. Store credit cards won't raise your credit score. That must be from a bank.
Nope, that's not true. Absolutely not true. Store credit cards certainly do. I remember when we were talking about the types of credit that affect your credit score. Store credit cards do affect your credit score. Now, that could be plus or minus depending on how you use it, but it can also improve your credit score. So we're talking about, again, access to credit. So if you get $1,000 limit, don't rack it up to $1,000 because that's going to damage your score. Because now you're at, you've got a high balance with the limit. But it certainly does affect your score in that you have credit. Use it periodically so you have that positive payment history, but don't charge it up. Keep that balance less than 30% of your limit. So it absolutely can raise your credit score. It does not have to be from a bank. But that's a great question.
I think Rihanna, you had a comment to one of the questions.
Well, yeah, I did. But he had a follow-up question I was going to add around the credit cards in terms of asking for lower interest rates. So there's definitely the potential to do that. And I was just going to add, if you have a very large balance, I don't know if that might be some of the reason why the question was being asked, is usually if you have a very large balance outstanding, you can actually ask the credit card company to potentially lower the rate. And what they do is they provide a fixed set of payments at that rate. And it'll kind of become like a fixed rate loan. So the card will still reflect on your credit report as a revolving credit, but you can probably get it paid off in about 5 years. And the only reason why I'm familiar with this is because I know somebody personally who did that with Bank of America credit card, and it was still reflective. After they paid the balance off, they did close the card. However, during that time period, the rate was reduced from, I can't recall what it was like 16%. It was actually dropped to like 5%, and it was paid over a fixed rate of time. And that helped her tremendously in terms of getting that balance paid off and paid down. And then again, it also helps support a better credit score.
Thank you so much, Rihanna. We have time for one more question. Could you explain a credit inquiry again?
Sure. So from a credit inquiry perspective, a soft inquiry is when the creditor only has limited access to your credit, and they only can see specific information. A hard credit inquiry provides your entire credit report, and that is usually what the creditor is looking at, or whomever pulled your credit report. That's what they're looking at to make their decision on. So it'll have your entire credit report, your credit history, payment history, and other information. So, and it does actually hit your credit. So then you will see a section on your credit report that says inquiry, and you will see that inquiry on there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rihanna.
Can I add just a real quick note to that?
Yes, Cheryl. Thank you.
So as Rihanna mentioned, you've got the hard inquiries in response to application. You've got the soft inquiries for like marketing purposes primarily. But then also when you yourself pull your credit report, that does not show on your credit report, and it absolutely does not affect your score. I think that's an important thing to know. We've had, historically a lot of questions regarding that. So don't hesitate to look at your credit reports. It's really, really, really important that you do so and know that it will not affect your credit score.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. I know we have to close out. Ken had the follow-up question. He doesn't know which one is a good rate for him because there are so many credit cards out there. So many different rates.
Well, I would say just because it is a credit card, I would think the best advice to kind of give here is that it is revolving. Revolving credit generally does have a different daily rate. So what happens is if you carry a balance, you're being charged on that balance every day. And there's a certain percentage that there's like a calculation. If you look at the terms and conditions, it tells you how to calculate it. So at this time, it's really just ensuring that you understand that if you're going to get into a credit card with revolving credit, it depends on what purchase you're looking to make, how large the purchase is, because at that point you would be paying a daily rate, and it compounds daily. And that interest usually gets really high. Credit cards usually have a higher rate of interest. So it would just there's a lot of different variables I would look at before considering what credit card to look at or apply for.
The internet is your friend in this case.
Yes.
Research. NerdWallet, I like NerdWallet, but that's just a launch. That's just a starting point. That's not the all inclusive, but I find that they've got some good information there. But NerdWallet, but Google,
yeah, start with Google. Thank you guys so much. We have to close out now because it is 1:00.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you for a great presentation. We learned a lot and the wonderful questions. If you missed any part of the presentation, it's going to be available on LAPL's YouTube channel. So it's youtube.com/Los Angeles Library. You can even go just shortly after, it'll be on there. And then starting next week, Small Business Month starts. May is Small Business Month. We have a program next Thursday, May 4th at 12 p.m. Top Secrets to Buying a Franchise. So that'll be on our YouTube channel as well. And more information on that program and all of our upcoming Small Business Month programs. Website is lapl.org/small business. If you go to our LAPL website, online calendar, it'll all be on there too. So thank you guys again for a great presentation. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.